Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War, and Star Wars. Alright, so Avengers Infinity War just passed $2 billion. Yay! Alright, now what's up, Scott? Why are you not happy that Avengers Infinity War passed $2 billion? Well, the reality is I am very surprised to find myself at this juncture. I thought I would be thrilled to see to see Avengers Infinity War pass $2 billion. But I am not. And the reason why is, as Avengers Infinity War skyrockets, hockey stick growths to $2 billion, my favorite franchise, Star Wars, is plummeting to new lows. So while the Marvel MCU goes to new heights, Star Wars reaches new lows for box office performance. Solo is the lowest performing Star Wars film in history from the perspective of how much was spent and how. I don't think there's every single metric. Solo is the worst performing Star Wars film in history. Right, it is a complete box office failure. Right, and people could debate those numbers, but I really think it's very. If you understand the industry, if you understand the potential of a Star Wars film, Solo, which had $103 million opening weekend, which is just absolutely abysmal for any Star Wars film, and Star Wars is now plummeting in box office, and the Solo film has thrown flags for the entire Star Wars property, saying, "Where are we now?" Right? Is Star Wars going to continue to be a mega intellectual property, a mega IP, a mega blockbuster franchise? Right? And I think a lot of people are like, of course it will. Well, I don't believe that anymore. Right? I don't believe. See, one of the things is when you create art in today's society, you can be the very best there is. Right? But there's so much competition to create art that it is very easy to be toppled off of that top spot. Very easy to be toppled off that top spot. So, and that's what's happened with Star Wars. It's been toppled from the height of American blockbuster success, right? And in my life, this is something many of the things that really are deep-seated within Scott Garibay, I don't know if they're awesome or terrible. And one of the things that is very much deeply seated in me is that I cannot separate things in my mind. I see an integrated world. I see a world of relationships. And honestly, while I should be able to separate out that there should be joy for the MCU from having this $2 billion film, I literally am saddened so deeply by what's happening to Solo that I cannot celebrate for the MCU, for Marvel, which is an IP I love. Three of my children are named for Marvel characters, right? They share the same name as Marvel characters, all of them X-Men, right? And so, my love for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, my love for Marvel overall, my love for Marvel comic books is deep. But I was shocked to find by this occurrence that my love for Star Wars is greater. I really am a bigger Star Wars fan than I am a Marvel fan. I didn't know that, right, until this event happened. But, the Marvel Infinity War hitting $2 billion, it's only the fourth movie in history to hit $2 billion. I should be thrilled, and I'm not. I'm just deeply, deeply saddened by what has happened to Solo. So at this time, I think it's worth reflecting and seeing what are the lessons that we can learn from this moment in time, right? So here's some of the lessons that I am learning, right? And things that, new understandings about the world that come from this event, right? So one, I think what we have to truly acknowledge is the rise of the destructive complainer, right? So Star Wars right now has a number of people within it, and nobody knows the real percentage. Is it 10%? Is it 50%? Is it 75%? It's hard to tell, because this community of destructive complainers are are very vocal on the internet, and it multiplies their number, and we don't really know the true percentage, right? So what is a destructive complainer, right? If you don't like Star Wars, right? If you don't like the prequels, if you don't like The Force Awakens, right? So here's the issue, right? To me, I have no problem with someone coming and saying, I don't like this movie within Star Wars, right? What I have a problem with is people who move into this new phase, this new type of person within our current American society, which is this destructive complainer. Someone who is invested in the failure of an intellectual property, right? And that's my issue, right? So one, I've given this, so there's a great television show. It was called Fallen Skies. I loved it. It had about 5 seasons, maybe 4, right? I watched the first 2 seasons and I loved them. I watched the 3rd season and I didn't like it. And I told people, I don't like this 3rd season, right? And then the 4th season came on and I didn't like the beginning of the 4th season, so I stopped watching it. And I think after I stopped watching the Fallen Skies 4th season, I don't think I ever talked about it again, right? If there's an intellectual property that I really like and it goes in a direction that I don't like, I'm not going to set up camp and sit there at the base of that intellectual property and celebrate every time it makes a misstep, and clang a gong telling everybody I hate Fallen Skies, right? It's just, what is the point of it, right? And that's what we have with Star Wars. We have this community of destructive complainers, and this community is a subset of the Star Wars community, right? They're part of the Star Wars community, right? And one of the reasons why is they really dislike, they grumble constantly, they complain constantly about the intellectual property, but they won't leave it, right? And that is the issue. That is the issue that I see as the major problem. That's why we are where we are with Solo, is this community of destructive complainers. People have said, hey, I didn't like the prequels. I didn't like Force Awakens. I didn't like The Last Jedi. I don't like Solo before it even comes out, right? Well, if you didn't like the prequels, go away. Like, stop watching. I get if you wanted to come back for Force Awakens, because it's kind of a new launch. Maybe it's going to be different, right? But generally, if you spent 10 years complaining about the prequels, be gone with you, right? Like, I really don't see any point in staying for a property that your primary interaction with is complaint about that property, right? And that's my issue, is we have, and I also believe that this is new. I don't think we really had this before. These large, communities that bolster themselves up by, talking to each other and enjoying each other's content, which is pure complaint material, right? There are thousands of videos on YouTube, saying, hey, I didn't like this, I didn't like that, I didn't like this, right? And the reality is, if you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 100 videos on a concept where you're saying, I dislike this concept, the problem is you, right? If the majority of your interaction with an intellectual property is complaining about it, then you are the problem, right? This world is filled with art. There's lots of things for you to go enjoy, right? And so I really feel that the problem is this community of destructive complainers who boycotted the film, who told people that Solo was Soilo, and just celebrated its failure before it ever had a chance to succeed, right? And so what is the lesson we should learn, right? Well, one, we should learn to recognize destructive complainers, right? So if the majority of your content is not celebrating a thing, but downing a thing or downing lots of things, then you, all right, are really wrong in your behavior and wrong overall, right? And are not worth somebody's time and attention and interaction. And so we as people today, if we're going to have awesome things, if we're going to have nice things, right, if we're going to have a culture that puts celebration over denigration, then we need to be very careful to recognize who we're listening to and who we're giving time and attention to. And if their primary interaction with an intellectual property is negative, and they will not stop talking about that and go find something they do enjoy, then basically that person is not worth listening to, in my opinion. And so I think, so right now, I think, we're looking at a situation where Avengers Infinity War is at $2 billion, an absolute new high for comic book movies, an absolute new high for for movies overall. But when I look at this situation, I see a situation where I'm like, okay, what really needs to happen here is we need to have we need to be able to recognize destructive complainers and immediately leave them as far as time, attention, views, comments, any of it, right? Just leave their content, leave their channels, leave their blogs, leave their memes, do not interact with them in any way. Now, I want to be super clear. I'm an American. I love freedom of speech. Everybody has the right to say if they don't like a thing. And I am not questioning for 1 second all these people's rights to say what they're saying. What I'm saying is we, as the Star Wars community, need to recognize these destructive complainers and not give them 1 ounce of fuel. And that fuel is our comments, our likes, our time, our attention, our talking about them, doing any, disconnect, disengage, allow their content to die without the oxygen of attention. That's my point. Take care.